Mhm.
So what I've done a presentation together to sort of highlight some of the points that we've gone over. And I got this fun little quiz thing in the middle I'm going to show you.
Uh-oh.
It's a what do you call it? A group sport.
Oh.
So when you're painting rocks, it's rocks in the sunlight or rocks in shadow. And I came across this the other day at in the park and looked at it. Thought, oh, it's the exact same rocks, both in the light and in the shadow, and they definitely have turned into a warm and cold, perfect sort of setting. So um, it's what are the colors you're looking at. So if you start to like zone in on an area and identify the color, you can kind of get an indication like how dark or how light is it or what value is it.
Mm.
So it's definitely cold, but what value is it? Quite often it's much darker than you think.
Yeah, it's pretty dark.
So I'm going to just, I'm not anguishing through it all, but those are three of the cold colors. You can kind of see the scope of it right there. There are the foreground colors, and you can see how warm they are. If when I highlight on one of these areas, it's never a solid color like that. I'm just arbitrarily picking a pixel. But when I look at that, I undermix my paint, so I'd see lots of stuff in my paint. And when I look at this up close in the area, there's always lots of stuff. So
Right.
yeah, but for this, I'm just zeroing in to show you the difference between the same colors of rocks in the shade. And it's the discussion is, okay, if I'm going to warm them up, I've also got to get the value of those rocks correct as well to make it work. So I thought you'd get a kick out of this. So I've got a slide in there. And what I thought I would do is get you to guess what value it is going up. So I was showing you in class that looks too dark in there. And if you go up to the top, it definitely looks too light.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't say that in class, but obviously the reason you're knowing the value is you have to mix it. You have to mix the paint. So you got to know when you're looking at something, how dark or how light is it, besides whether it's warm or cold. So here we go. It's not a 9.
Okay, that's the one.
Yeah,
See, it's too dark there.
yeah,
It's too light there. It's right
Mhm.
on, right?
Mhm.
right.
So I'm going to pull that out. And you can see that test was number 4, and that's what you picked. Okay, so you know how it works, right? Here is A, and we're just going to slide it in there as well.
This is cool. Is this a little program?
Absolutely cool.
This is, this comes on a Mac. It's called Keynote, and I just made this up myself.
Huh. Oh,
I
too
think it's
dark
number
there.
8.
You can see
Oh,
there's
yeah.
too dark, right?
Yeah,
Too
so
light,
maybe 8 or
too
9.
dark.
It's not 9. Nine's black.
But it's
I
not
think
8 either.
8.
Well,
It's
I
the
guess it
closest
is.
to 8. It's kind of in
Yeah, I guess it's
between.
got to be 8.
Yeah.
So it's an 8. So if everyone said 8, you got that one right.
That'll be a 9 because it's darker than the A.
9.
No.
But
Nine.
it still looks.
Eight.
No. I think
Eight.
it's
An
8.
8? Okay. 8 or 9?
Yeah.
Really, I'd say it's darker than it's. Oh, yeah, I guess.
No. Oh, let's
Yeah,
see that one.
that's it. 7.
Yeah, I think it's 7.
Yeah.
7.
7.
Okay. So now I'm going to go over the warm family 1, and I'm picking warm. So we know the warm, just looking at it, we know it's going to be down the chart.
Oh, that one's
Mhm.
looking pretty
That
good.
looks
Go down
good.
to
Yeah,
number 6.
Yeah. I'd say 6.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a 6.
Yeah.
So let me just stop there. This is what we were talking about. This is looking at color, yet you're picking the value. And people refer to the value as grayscale, but it's in color, but they'll still say grayscale. Last two.
No.
It's a 4.
I don't know.
Oh, no.
No,
it's
no,
not.
no, no, I think it's 5.
5.
6.
It's a 5.
6.
Can you go up to 6? Oh, okay. You agree it's 5?
There's 6.
It's 5.
7.
Oh, it's pretty good
no.
on
6?
6. 6, now
No,
5?
no, no. Oh,
5?
it's
No,
kind of
I
in
think it's
between.
6.
Yeah, I'd
I
say
think
6.
it's kind of, yes, it's more 6, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
My eye told me 5, but that's how it works, right? Okay,
Yeah.
so again, up here, it's too light.
Mhm. Oh,
6, do you think?
I'd say
Oh.
6.
no. Oh,
It's not quite.
no, go down.
This is when it's in between, isn't it?
Mm,
Or
Yeah.
5,
Not 4.
not
5.
4.
Can you do 7 again, please? Say 5, 6, 7 slowly.
No, that's.
No, it's
Too
not
light
7.
there. Too
Too
light.
light.
Yeah.
Say
I
6.
feel like I'm at the optometrist. Can
It's
you
neither
read a
light-
line number? It's more like 6, I think.
Yeah, I
It's,
agree.
it's not right on 6, though. It's a little bit
So
lighter.
almost like in between the two of them.
Yeah.
Okay, so pretty good demonstration of value and picking value, even though it's in color. So it doesn't matter what color it is, you can put a value to it. One of the issues, when you see a typical chart, even if it was like an orange, like Cadmium orange, you'd start off at the bottom or the top, and you'd go and you keep putting a gradation in it. But what people don't explain to you, Cadmium orange itself is a 4, where ultramarine blue is an 8. So when you're actually putting those in, as soon as you start to put Cadmium orange in a gradation, it starts to look not so orange as you go up pretty quickly. Like by the time you get up to a 6, it's no longer orange, and then it's pretty pale by the time you go down. But colors themselves start off at a value. Okay, this one down here, that's a circle, but with only one value on it, and it's totally flat, and you can't get dimension. This large one in the foreground has 5 or 6 values on it, and all of a sudden you can get the roundness of the piece. It looks 3-dimensional. But when it's mid-distance, it only needs 3 values to still look like it's round. Matter of fact, you can't put on too many values if it's further away. Otherwise, it looks wrong, like your attention will go to it versus the foreground. And when something is in the distance, you can practically cover it with 2 colors, sort of a lighter and a darker, will let you see it. I'm going to show you actual rocks and how this works in our painting that we're working on. But that's the idea. One value, you'll get a flat. Several values, you'll get a real round feeling. And then as it goes further away, the number of values required to get that look. So a distant rock that's far away, you can practically take your underpainting that is dark and just do something light on it. It looks like a rock. And this is a pretty standard kind of a discussion about the different types of light that are actually in a painting. And just talking about reflective light for a second, I was doing a class, and outside the window was like a gray street, and there was a gray planter. And I took a orange sheet of paper and put it on the sidewalk, and the whole side of the planter was orange.
Really? Wow.
So
Okay.
it's reflective light. So if you put color somewhere down underneath it, it'll go through its variation, and then you'll get reflective light coming back up. If you're just doing a box, you could get a box in 3 colors. So light, if the light's coming to the top, the darker side, and the mid-tone in the side. So when you're doing a rock, that's pretty well would cover a sort of a standard rock. But how do you show if a rock is cut at an angle? In other words, if this side of the rock is worn down, how do you show that if you've only got your 3 tones? Well, you have to have a fourth value. You have to have a value which is darker than the top, not as dark as the side, certainly not as dark. And it's only your eye is only going to think of that as another dimension when you add a value. So 3 values gave us the shape of a box. 4 values start to show it's eroded. And of course, what happens with a rock is this, all your sides will start to erode down, and this will erode. And then you'll have an edge like this up in here. But you could literally take 4 values and keep on using them on a rock. In other words, if there was a ledge here, it may have the same light as the top here. If it goes down at an angle here, and at the bottom, it might be quite dark. And you do that, you can form a rock. So illustrating that, it's this. Whoops. Here's the rock that is not square, but there's the top. There's the one side, although it's small, and there's the third side. So this shape up here, this shape, and this shape would make up a rock or the box. But you can see this shape indicating this coming down. So when you've got a rock that's close up, and obviously you can see different values on the side here, and I must be ticking that, but so you can see different values on the side of the rock and in different places. And you can actually see a ledge in here that has a little bit of light on it. And then you can see up here, it's in shadow, it's quite dark. So all of a sudden you could take those, and it's warm on one side in here. And I've left this just the same gray color. But it's changing the value that will give you a rock up close. And the closer it is, the more values you're going to see. But when it's this close, you've got to be at least using 4 or 5 values. And as it goes back, you can almost see you got 1 value coming across the top, 2, 3, and then underneath is 4. And look at, you got a darker value and a lighter value. Until finally, when you get down here, this is represented by this area in here. It's getting your dark bottom, which is here, and your other color, which is here. Why that's important for you to know this whole discussion is, in your painting, you've got rocks across the lake, and you've got rocks up front.
Right.
So there are rocks in this area. So if you go back now, here's where you've got your multiple planes. You've got your rock coming this way, going down the side, and then into. So here is the only place you can really start to use 3 or 4 values in order to get your painting to work. Plus, this area in general, the rock should be cooler because we're saying the sun is hitting the front here, and this is the back. So all of a sudden, you're mixing 3 or 4 values in here, and then you're coming across and you're getting, you can see this rock I've just done really in 2 values here and coming across.
Okay.
And here I got a side, a little bit of a value in the front. And here I've said it's in shade, so I don't even really have any value, but it's generally an attempt to warm it up on the area, warmer in the middle of transition and cooler on the side. So that's the combination of making a rock. It's getting a dark base, 3 or 4 values, and then deciding whether it's cool or warm. When you go across the way, you practically are doing 1 value. Like I've just got a swoosh down the side here and a little swish. The other thing you do that makes rocks work is you put 1 rock in front of the other rock. And that's especially easy if you've done a dark side and your next rock has a lighter top. So putting rocks and then growth in front of the rocks really make it work. I'm gonna stop there because that whole session was just on the rocks. It was making
Right.
sure you had temperature, value, and then determining the number of values that you need to make the rock work. Is that any questions on that?
Is there a particular distance that you only use two values for a rock?
You know what, I literally do based on what I see. You know what, one of the difficulties of being an artist, whether you're using a photograph or you're on location, is when you take a photograph, it stops in space and time. When you're looking, your eye refocuses like a movie camera. So your eye will zoom out and it will actually make that middle size rock. But what I do is I kind of focus on the foreground and ask how close am I to these rocks and how much detail it is. And then I sort of get an indication of what's coming up next. But when I actually am painting, I'm playing with that concept. In other words, if there were mid-ground rocks that I could see detail in it, I'd take the detail out because I want my painting to work.
Mhm.
And I know if I get excited and I start putting detail
Yeah.
in mid-ground, your eye will go there and get stuck on the detail.
Okay.
So the answer is, it's what do you see, but be careful of that, your eye as a
Yeah.
movie camera, refocusing on the mid-tone rocks. You should be looking at the near rocks and then out of the corner of your sight, look at the mid-tone, the mid-distance. Okay. So now these are just close-ups of my paintings. And they're just showing you what those rocks look like at a distance. I would not have consciously put on any little small highlights onto my paints that you see in there. Those show up because I'm not mixing my paints thoroughly. So if I had mixed a gray color that I liked and I said, okay, they're distant, so they're going to be cool, they're in the shadow, and they're going to be desaturated. So desaturated with white. Then I'm just going to go blang, hit it once and leave it. And so what happens is wherever it goes white, it goes lighter, it goes lighter. Wherever it goes darker, it goes darker. I'm not consciously really trying to hit the highlights that you see in the painting are all accidental. But it's accidental after a lot of experience. And if I was wrong, I just hit it again and correct it. But all I want you to do at the distance is, I just want you to know there's rocks back there.
Mhm.
I do not want your eye to go to that rock as detail. Because if I do detail, even if it's quite small, if I do detail, your eye will go back there and your eye will get locked. And that's not my focal point of my painting.
Okay.
So that's how you do rocks in the foreground, mid-down, and distance. And in this particular painting, we don't have any rocks really in the foreground. We don't have anything that's like right in front of us. Looks like we could step on it. It looks like it's like 20 or 30 feet away. And then so that's more mid-ground rocks. And then these next set of rocks are really quite farther across the river. So there's kind of a summary. So it says, when you're doing rocks or other objects, right? This is just, we're talking rocks today, but you start off and you ask yourself, what's the temperature? And then where is the temperature? Like, where's the sun hitting and where is it warmer? Then you work out your values and you say, what values are they? So even in our light colors, we weren't working on any 1s and 2s. So you say, what are they? So you say our darks are 6, 7, 8, and our lights are 4, 5, 6, let's say. And then you ask, how many values are required? So in the distance, really, honestly, with the underpainting being dark, which should be 1 value, I'm only hitting the top of it with the second value. So in fact, when I'm painting, I only put on one value in the distance. And what I will do is I'll change the temperature so they're all cold, but I might make a little bit bluer, a little bit greener, a little more purple, but all cold, all at the same value. And I'm going to do the distance with one value. And then putting objects in front of objects is gives it a realistic look. So if you have this rock sitting here with a good solid base, then think about putting a lighter rock right in front of it. Different size, different shape. One's kind of square, one could be round. But that even in a short, near front, up close shot, things in front of things make it work.
Okay.
And just so we always talk about from the back to the front. I do my rocks, then I do the rocks in front of it, and then I do all my greenery because I want the greenery to cover everything, pop over the rocks and
Right.
even come up over the into the water itself, giving distance.
Okay.
Okay, so water, it's difficult in the mountains to talk to people about that because there is so much sediment in the water that in certain light, the water actually will have a color in it. And if you're into a really a mountain, Banff, glacial stream, you can forget everything I'm saying and just get out your turquoise color and your like there's about there's an emerald, a turquoise, and something else that I use when I'm doing those mountain scenes. And I don't even think about anything else. You hardly think about reflection or anything else. So if you think about it, when you're painting water's clear. And so what you're doing is you're painting what you see around the water in the water. So in this one, on the far right, everything is about the trees. It's trees. So you can the trees are actually in layers, but you can actually see the layers of the trees in the water. The issue there is it's typically always darker. So you've got quite a dark green and you can see the trees coming up. And, if in painting that scene, I would never put that many points of the trees, especially I would assume if this was full picture, my focal point is probably more here to the left or looking down the lake. So that would be a distraction. But would I put in an indication of that tree line? Yep. And then you can see a second tree line. And then you see the rocks in the distance are breaking up the shoreline.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things to note is the shoreline in the distance is broken up. In other words, if you decided not to put in any details of those rocks, but just take your brush straight along, that would be a mistake because it's broken up. You can see there's black spots, gray spots. So although it's a line going in there, it's broken up. But all the rocks are reflected in the water as well. So you can play with that a little bit, albeit it's so far away, it's dangerous to create that level of detail. Then you see the mountain is coming down as a V, and in the water you see a V. But look at the color change from where you see the distant mountain is a purple, a very dark, a muted purple.
The one on the left?
I'm almost looking at the center.
Oh.
I'm looking right there.
Oh, you're
So
calling,
it's a
okay, you're
reflection
calling that purple.
It's that area in here.
Okay.
So I would describe that. So when I mention a color, I do this. I say, what color would I have to make first before I made that? And so I'd make a purple and then I would desaturate it and probably put a little bit of black in it to get that color. It's just, I might sometimes look at a green over here and call it yellow because I'm fundamentally saying although it's in the green family. So what you're looking at here is you're looking at purple. So when you're painting water, forget the water. Don't think about painting water. Here, you're painting the sky. And the
Right.
reason this sky is so dark compared to this sky is based on the angle we are standing on this little hill. That sky is almost straight above us. This sky here is almost straight up. So although this is more of a light color or even a cerulean, that could be a dark ultramarine blue color. So just to summarize for a second, if I'm standing there painting, I'm painting these trees in the water. I'm painting that mountain in the water. I'm painting the sky up above in the water. So I'm really never painting the water. I'm just painting shapes, values, tones. And I'm thinking about what am I looking at? So if I look at this on the angle I am, I'd stop and look up in the sky. And no matter what color I see anywhere, I go a little darker in it. The beauty of that would be when I'm painting this tree, I would note the color and then mix the next batch darker for this. When I was painting that distant mountain, I'd note the color. I'd note the color and I'd paint the different color. Then over here, these spots are a reflection of this spot here.
Right.
And this is the reflection of that. And this is the trees. So if you look at, if you were to say, what is the water is the sky, the trees, the mountains, the shoreline. That's what it is.
So are
Does
there
that-
any kind of like any hints or anything about how to deal with there's kind of like almost a horizontal line over towards the right of the screen where there's probably some kind of water current cutting right across the reflection of
Yeah.
the trees.
We'll definitely talk that's coming up.
Okay.
That's coming up. Good point though.
So to change the color, you say you'd mix the darker color and then paint it lighter, or you use the lighter color and then darken it up for the reflection.
Yeah, so what I do when I'm mixing all my sky colors, my trees, everything else, I keep on looking at it. No, I got to do it again and go darker.
And so then, not the sky, because it sounds like they're different blues, but the other colors, how are you darkening them up? You're
Well,
adding,
typically, as you know, like if you're mixing a green, like more blue in it will make it darker. So I'd mix this
Okay.
color and I put more blue in it.
okay,
If anytime a color gets kind of a little bit too blue, let's say, the complementary color kills it. So if let's say
Right. that's right.
I was putting ultramarine blue in this color, I just put a little tiny bit of orange just to kill the color a little bit,
Oh, okay,
mute it. This, I'd be thinking again of mixing a really muted purple,
yeah,
and then I would again kill it.
with green.
Yeah, I'd really question some stuff like how white is this stuff, and do I really want it in there? Because again, that's so light, it'd be hard for your eye not to go there. So I might just make this all the same or similar color and form and skip that white that's there. And that's one of the things I hope you hear me saying all the time. I got to make the painting work. So
Right.
I don't care what's really there. I got to make the painting work.
Okay,
Now, I'm going to go over some of this different parts of this. So I'm going to start at the bottom. You can see to a certain point, the water is kind of a greenish color, and it even has a little bit of gold in there. But if you think of warmer, cool, and value, look at any of those rocks in the water, and they're probably in a fairly similar range. In the very, very center, they look greenish. To the right, they look a little reddish. And as they come closer to the shore, the value gets a little bit lighter. So the secret of rocks underwater, which you don't have to paint in your painting, is it's the shadow. It's the shadow underneath,
Right.
because those there's not a big change of value on any rock per se. You've got a shadow underneath, and what you mix your value, it's the value on top, albeit the value changes from rock to rock, right? So there's a very large rock in the left. It's dark underneath. It gets a little cooler on the back and a little warmer on the front. So if my dark is in the water, I can make that rock with two values. Then I'm going into the sky after that. What I see in that blue is the sky, and I'm painting the sky. So
Right.
my sky colors are going to go in there. I'm going to come to the currents and the waves in a second. Then in the distance, the far shore, that's the trees. There is no blue from the sky in there. That's green, the reflection from the trees
Right.
and the reflection from the rocks. So again, when you're painting water, do not think about it as being water. Just
No.
look at an area, look at say, is it green? Is it red? Is it whatever? Mix your color, get your value right, but make sure that a number of what you call the rocks have a shadow underneath. Then when you're mixing your blue skies, remember to mix a transition, because it doesn't go from a green right away to a blue. It goes into a greenish blue and then a blue.
Right.
Now I want to talk about the currents and the waves. This is really interesting because you got everything going at once. But I'm going to go back over near the rock, the big rock on the left. What's coming in to that rock are ripples. And the ripples are a wave. And what happens is this. One time, the wave is at such an angle, it is a reflection of the sky. And the front of it, or the back of it, depending where the sun is, has gone dark. I would suggest that the sun here is straight ahead above, and that the back of the wave is the sky, and the front of the wave is a shadow.
Wow.
You see that? So you think about.
Can you point out which part of the painting you're talking about?
If you go over here, that wave,
Oh, I see. Okay. Uh-huh.
that back
Right.
is the sky, and that front is a shadow. That wave right here, that's a shadow, and that's the back. So that's what a wave is. It is that. I'll draw this on the chalkboard, but if you think about the shape of, coming up and going down, depending on where you're standing in the sunlight, but if you're in front of it and it's coming at you, it's reflecting the sky back up over your head. And it's gone black because you can't see it. So that's what's going on. And these are waves in which it's reflecting a cloud. And that's all these are. You just got to think of up and down, up and
So
down.
then
Of course,
you have to be conscious and be consistent that all of your waves have sky on the backside and shadow on the front side.
they could have clouds. That's why those are white.
Right.
That's cloud on the back.
Okay.
And
Sky or
darker on the
cloud,
front.
whatever's in the sky. Right.
Right.
Okay.
So again, it's getting the fear of painting water out of your head. You say, I'm not painting water. I'm painting green with a highlight and a dark shadow. I'm painting front of it, getting these odd shapes that are fun. I'm getting the front of it dark and the back of it the darker sky. The front of it's dark and the back of it's the cloud.
So if
Down
you were
here-
standing on the shore but the sun was behind you, and you're standing on the shore looking out at the water, then everywhere there that's dark would now be light, and the dark part would actually be essentially the other side of the little ripples. Would that be correct?
Yeah, I think I'm not sure exactly what you said, but just look down here at the far right. This is dark shadow. So the sun is up over this way somewhere.
Yeah.
And so
So
what
I
it's
was-
doing is it's coming
If-
down and it's hitting the back of the wave,
Yeah.
and there's the shadow.
No, I understand that. I was just thinking about if you move the sun so that if you move the position of the sun and
Oh,
you're
right.
standing
So
on
the
the
wave-
edge of that shore, so the sun is actually immediately behind you, that means
That it would be the
shining on the
exact
front.
opposite.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
But the exact same principle. You'd see the sky on the front, and you'd see the shadow on the back.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now
So if the
this
sun,
stuff,
if the sun's behind you, then the front here, what we are all seeing is the shadow. That would actually be the sun, so it would be all
Yeah.
bright light
Yeah.
facing you.
yeah,
So just another question on this too, like in the foreground there, you've got the very light rocks, and then they go darker, but they go more intense, but they're also still warm. And then when you get that green, you're obviously not reflecting sky. Is it looking green because the blue of the sky is merging with the kind of the warm color of the rocks?
no,
Like,
because
why is
what-
it green along there?
because now what you're doing is you're standing at such a height at an angle, you're looking straight through the water to the bottom of the lake, the
Yeah.
bottom of the river. So what your eye has on that bottom part, all this area in here, your eye isn't looking at the surface at all. You're looking straight through the water, and you're seeing the bottom.
But the bottom is not green. The bottom is that warm brown, like kind of a warm, creamy brown.
It is, and it's green. It's green because either something's in the water or whatever. It also
It just
might be
seems
just
weird.
the camera has a tendency to be a little bit of yellow, make it a little bit yellow. But so let's go through some of it. Like a classic color that people would paint would be a copper color.
Yeah.
You could paint that like a coppery color, but same principle. You got to get the shadow under your rock, and you got to get the highlight on the rock.
So if you were painting that, would you paint every one of those little rocks? Every one of those
God.
little
Never.
shadows?
Never.
No, good.
No, because here's my decision. Here's my thinking. It's always everything's based on the focal point. So I'm looking at my focal point. I see rocks down there, and I say, "Would doing all those rocks help me in this painting?" And the answer is no. Then why would I ever, in God's name, do them all? Right? And that's what I do. I just decide. Now, yeah, so I might turn around and said, the group of rocks on your left may be 5 large rocks in my painting.
Right.
So now we've got a little bit of this. A little bit of this is a little bit of everything here. This is a Jasperish kind of a painting. But you can see. Can you see? Although you're looking through it, can you also see the sunlight?
Yeah,
on there,
all the
Really
lines.
strong.
Now, if you guys get a chance, there is a painter in Craft Connection. The whole wall, he's done these rocks, and they're beautiful, stunning paintings. Except this one thing he's done, I don't think he's done it correctly. He has these blue sky areas of his painting, but in his paintings, in one of them, it looks like Mercury sitting on a surface
Oh,
because he hasn't kind of roughed out his edges, either blending the paint together or
Oh.
just making them fade. But if you were painting this area in here, let's say you were doing this area, that you go through the exact same decisions. You had said, what temperature? Well, the sun's hitting it, so it's going to be warm. where the back of this is going to be cool. So this is all warm. How many values, and you got the top of this, the side, you've got a flat surface. So you could practically, like some art books will talk about your surfaces, how many surfaces, but it's like, I know if this was a box, I could do, the top would be 1, the side would be 2, and the end would be 3. So in 3 surfaces. The only issue is this goes down at a little bit of an angle, and this is even more of an angle. So that would be 1, 2, 3, 4. And this has got this sort of a reflective light coming back on it, and 5. So, you know, you got to be 4 or 5 colors in here. But in here, I've got the dark is already in. I'm just going to hit that with a little bit of light and then make it a little bit darker and pull out my reflection.
Patrick,
So,
with this,
yeah.
with the at the very bottom of this, the foreground there, is that the basically the top of the mountain, at the horizon, basically? So like right in the center there, you've got some light. That's because that's like the peak of the mountain that the sky is showing. Is that what that is?
This V in here is
Yeah,
the mountain.
Oh,
Yes,
I
yeah,
for
see what you're
sure.
saying. Oh,
Like
right.
I know if I look up, right, coming through
right,
here, there's going to
Oh,
be a V in the mountain. So
right.
what I'm really doing is I'm painting this part of the lake in shade, and this is in full light. So again, look at your, I could hit this with just one color, put my brush in the water, just drag it forward a little bit to get that shadow. Albeit I'd like it to be a little darker and maybe a little cooler. And then look in here, this area, like just even an inkling of something being in there, your eye would the viewer would build in the rest.
mhm.
And there's just, look at this rock in here. It's a greenish shade with a dark side this way, lighter this way, and darker going that way. That's got a little bit of red in it. And it's really only one value that's that value. But the value of this area in here and this area are about the same. So it is red, but I got to make sure my values stay the same. So it actually looks like it fits in.
And I see in that picture there, the water's almost vertical as opposed to horizontal, the lines.
Well, first of all, one thing I want you to look at too is see this light area in here? That's the mountain coming down here.
Yeah.
Right, right.
So this area here, now I've got another, I'm not sure if I put it in. No, I've got another picture. You can really see it. But when I'm painting this, I got to think that this is this mountain in shadow, the shadow of a reflection of this mountain. By the way, that's a question to ask yourself. Am I looking at a shadow or a reflection? And I would get you just to go like walk along the river, the lake side, and look and ask yourself that question, because along Riverside, the walkway, by 4:30, I'm looking at shadow of the mountain, but earlier in the day, I'm looking at the reflection of the mountain. So again, all these lines in here are all the reflection of this mountain here. And all this blue part is just, if you think about ripples here, and let's say that's 100 yards here. Well, 100 yards back here is only this little distance here. So you're just looking at the same thing you're looking at here, but really up close. So one of the elements that I do when if I was going to put horizontal lines in there, I would I'd put a line here, go a third of the painting here, go a third again. And as I'm doing that, I said that backwards. Okay, I'd put a line here. I'd go back here, put a line. But as I go back, I get closer together until finally my lines here are all closer together, because I know I'm looking at like my 100 yards here is 100 yards is just this little line. So that's again perspective. And
So
now I
you get that kind of rough look because all those currents are kind of indicated by kind of a roughness.
it is, you've got this,
So how do
the
you
way
do
you
that?
get the, well, the way you get the
Sure.
roughness is get the smoothness. So when you do these parts with the reflection in it, get them right, and you can just take your brush and go straight over that.
Right.
Just get your value right, and you can take your brush and just go straight over
You got that, Margaret? It's that simple.
it.
Sure.
You know what I really wanted to do today, though, was just to get you thinking about what water is. So just if I'm saying all these different things that I want you when you're out to look and say, okay, I'm looking through the water at the bottom. Okay, that's a reflection. That's the sky in the V of those two mountains. And if one thing about Nelson and Castlegar, every time you go out, you see all of this. It's all there all the time.
Yeah.
One thing that really works out really well with a painting is this, if you're doing your shoreline, is you're able to do this rock in two values.
Right.
So if you take that value, look, it's coming here. And you take that value, it's coming here. The only issue is on your paintings is I always try to get my brush marks going horizontally. Now you notice back in like, well, we got a swirl right there, bit of a swirl. In some paintings, I actually do this. I actually take this little white color mark and I put my swirls in, and I'll actually create the shape coming in. And I'll tell you, that's hard to do because when you start, if all your marks are going in this direction and you start to do these swirls coming around in a circle, it's very distracting, but boy, it looks gorgeous. So you could do that. You could do your for the currents, you just take your little blue paint, you just do those little spots. But for these guys, you could just look at the color, it's cool, it's green, and that one's warm. And you just come across and you just put your marks going this way and let it fade out. And these lengths change by where you're standing. So I'm not a great high school science guy, but it's your angle of incidence and your angle of refraction. So as you move up, they become shorter, and as you move down, they become longer. So you got to pay attention because it makes sense. Now I'm going to see if I see something. I want to just make an observation. See that branch going this way?
Mm.
Yeah.
In your reflection, if it was there, it's going to go this way, right?
Right.
Right.
So you want to make sure when it comes to this way, the reason it goes this way is because this piece of the branch right there is here,
Mm-hmm.
and this end branch is way out here.
Right.
Right.
So when you've got so often you don't know that because everything we came to paint has these straight lines. But if you see something coming at an angle that way, make sure to get an angle going this way.
So Patrick, if you're painting this, are you going to put the green paint on first and then take that light tan color of the rocks and the beach and brush over that to try to do it? Or
Yeah. So what I would do is I'm going to make a decision. Now we always go dark to light.
yeah,
But there's a point in time when.
Well, that's what I'm
There's a
saying, because
point in
this
time
looks
when
like it's mostly green, but it's got light colored lines on the green.
Yeah. So what I do is I'm going to look at this and I'm going to say, is it mostly light or mostly dark? Like I'm going to cheat on this one because of the work.
Yeah.
And I'm going to say, okay, this is mostly dark. So I'm going to put the whole thing under dark. But just watch for dark for a second. Let's just look at dark. This is a dark kind of a bluish color.
Yeah.
That's a dark, which is kind of greenish. Then it actually gets greener in the middle here
Mhm.
where the light is,
Yes.
which I think is this bush.
Yeah.
Right.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mix up puddles that are going to be quite dark, quite green, and quite blue. And I'm going to put an underlying gradation. I'm not sure if gradation is the word, but bluish green coming to a yellowy green, back to a bluish green, back to almost like some real dark spots. And it's going to be very modeled. And one thing I'm going to say to myself is I am not in my painting going to paint any of the dark colors. It's all the underpainting.
Oh, okay. Mhm.
Okay.
Now, when I come back to it, depending on how, like I have to figure out, like right now that looks extremely light, but my suspicion it's not. But I would then mix up piles of lightish color, and I would have them all ready to go. And as I work my way across, and I'd probably again work kind of the shoreline this way, painting out. And I would just keep on, go along here, put in some lines, series of lines. And I would never attempt to get all these lines in because this part of the painting is really, really busy. This is crazy busy. So I'd say this water has to be calm. If it was
Patrick, I have a question. So when you're putting that green and that light yellowish green in the middle there, whatever, would you put that paint on vertically? Like, would you go along and you would on the left-hand side, go the dark, going straight down,
Yeah.
so, and then get the little bit yellowish in the center there, and then go over to the dark green, whatever. Would you put it on that way and then go across?
All vertically, yeah. And I'll tell you, just so you know, there are definite times when you're going to look at a water, you're going to want to put on a horizontal painting, lines.
Yeah.
And boy, I'll tell you, you're never, every time you look at that painting, you're going to see those lines, just because it's just so awkward in a painting.
Yeah.
Even if it works, you're going to see it over and over again. So for me, I try 100% to go water vertically. And I'm also thinking, water, of course, is a self-leveler. So I'm always trying to think of, that it's the shoreline that goes in, but the water is the same height all the way across. So I just want to make sure I try to capture that. Okay. I keep on talking to you about, warm and cold, but I want to show you what you could do if you get warm and cold values all the same. Look at this, look at the water in here. So I've got white generally, especially titanium white, is cold. Oh, by the way, I'm not going to get into this in this seminar, but if you read about each different type of white you can buy, you'll have different characteristics. So they may be, they'll be transparent versus opaque, and they'll be warm versus cold. So I'm talking about titanium white, and I'm saying in your painting career, you'll be using titanium white 99% of the time.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Okay, bye, guys. Pleasure.
Thanks a
Good
lot,
night.
Pat. Great presentation.
Okay. Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you, guys. Good night.